Good morning. Today is Thursday. It's the third day of Kislev. And I want to dedicate today's class in the schus of our new grandson that was born about an hour ago, to our dear daughter, Sarala, and her husband, Mendel Paltiel, who are the shluchim of the Rebbe in Manhasset, New York. And we want to wish them all, they should be gesund and stark, megadel zale teure chuppah und meisem tovim. So, and today we continue in Tanya and Gimel Kislev, the third day of Kislev. We are holding in the middle of the chapter 4, in the middle of the fourth essay of Kuntres Acharon, the last part of the Tanya. And it is, as I mentioned, this is notes the Alter Rebbe wrote to himself about answering different questions and different contradictions that the Alter Rebbe explains. Some of them are very deep concepts. We're trying to bring it down to understand as much as possible. And Baruch Hashem, we're succeeding. So yesterday we spoke about the difference between the davening and the studying of the Torah. And we said that the Arizal says that in these days, the main thing of our work of refining and purifying and elevating the godly sparks. And if you want to understand what that means, go back to yesterday's class. We explained it a little bit. The godly sparks that we need to refine. And those godly sparks are being refined mainly through the davening, through prayer. And he explained that when you study Torah, you accomplish something in a higher world. But when through davening, through prayer, the davening really causes effect in this physical world. And this is why when you pray, what happens when you pray? It changes things in this world. People who are not well, God forbid, you pray and it has a physical change in them. You pray for rain, it brings a physical change. And this is the ultimate elevation of the and purifying of this physical world. And it says, when you pray, you need to reach to a place which is higher than the source of the energy that God has for this world. And in order to do this, you prepare yourself in a similar way. Meaning, what we say by Shema, love Hashem b'chol me'idecha, love God with all your might. And one of the explanations in this is that a person has to go beyond the limits. When you go beyond your limits, you're preparing to the ultimate limitless blessing and light of Hashem that comes down. Because the reaction that is affected by Hashem is similar to the action that you do here. With the arousal of below, it brings arousal from above. And today, the Alter Rebbe continues to explain about the mitzvahs, what mitzvahs accomplish. We ended up yesterday learning that the mitzvahs reach to the levels of, we called it the Za of Atzilus. Now, what is Za of Atzilus? This is the levels of the attributes of the emotions in the higher spiritual world called Atzilus. And the Alter Rebbe is going to bring a few places that it seems that it says other things where the mitzvahs come from and what it accomplishes, and it seems to be contradicting. And he's going to explain that there is no contradiction. Now, we know it's just to understand this. In order to understand this, I want to just use an example that I heard from another chassid. An example. Imagine you see a person, someone taking out see a poor person, a homeless person, and the guy takes out a couple of dollars and he gives the homeless person the dollars. You have a few different people see the same thing, and you're going to ask these people, what did you just see? What did you just witness? They may give you different answers. One can tell you that I saw this man giving money to that poor man. A beautiful deed. Another person, you ask him, he can tell you, you know what I ask him, what did you see? So, wow, I saw this person is so sensitive. He feels that person. He feels what that person, and he's sensitive about it. He has emotion, he has compassion. He's compassionate. You're going to ask a third person, what did you see? And he's going to tell you, wow, this person is so, he has so much tact. He did it. He went and he saw, he's observing to see what is right, what is wrong, which people need what. And he did it in such a tactful way. He understood that this person needs something and he helps them out. So the other guy is talking about emotion. This guy is talking about the intellect. And yet you can find a fourth person. You can ask him, what did you see? And he'll tell you, you know, look at what this person, what gives him pleasure. Some people have pleasure by going to a club. Some people have pleasure to eat. This guy he enjoys helping other people. That's his pleasure. So which answer is correct? Obviously, all of them are correct, right? All of them, they're all correct, all right. Because in this act involves action, the giving of the tzedakah. It involves the emotions. He gives because he feels the other person. It involves the understanding that that person is in need. And also involves his desire to give. He has a desire to give. He has a pleasure to give. And the same thing the Alter Rebbe is going to explain is regarding the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs, the commandments of God, have effects on different levels. They have an effect here in this physical world, in the world of Atzilus, in the emotional part. They have an effect in the intellectual, godly intellectual part, all the way till the will, the ultimate desire and will of Hashem, which is a very plain desire. So this is what we're going to explain now in this Shir Tanya. So let's look inside. So let's look inside. Here. Vehine, says the Alter Rebbe b'mokim acher kosav. In another place it says, Sheramach mitzvahs hasei hein be'ei chasadim. Where is the 248 mitzvahs? Where are they rooted? In the 5 attributes of chesed. What does it mean, 5 attributes of chesed? We know that in the emotional attributes we have altogether 7 emotions, but the main ones are the chesed and the gvura, the kindness and the strictness, the judgment. And the chesed goes through the first 5 of the emotions, and the same thing also the gevura, the attribute of judgment. So other places it says, we learned yesterday that the mitzvahs, the 613 mitzvahs are rooted in the Zoh of Atzilus, in the 6 emotions of Atzilus. Here it says that it's in the 5 chesed, v'shasa lo yisaseh behei gevuros, and the 365 negative commandments are rooted in the attribute of severity of Atzilus. That says in one place. Then there's another place it says, "B'mokemacha kosav, shehein taryag orchim nimshochim michad orchechulu." It says in another place that there are 613 paths which they derive from one path. Now, what is the one path where the mitzvahs come from? It says, Shehu lavnunis v'chulu, which is the lavnunis. What is the lavnunis? The benevolent, pristine whiteness, the supernal keser. It refers to the keser, the crown, which means he calls it the whiteness because white is the color which any color can go on it. It is what every color can be derived from. It is the source of everything. So that's what it says in another place, is written that the 613 mitzvahs are paths that come from this level, which is the keser, the crown, which is the lavnunis, the whiteness. So what does that mean? And the Alter Rebbe explains, Inyan shekol ha-mitzvahs letaken ramach ivorid zo. The explanation is, says the Alter Rebbe, all the mitzvahs are designed to rectify the 248 organ of Zo. Zo is the Ze'er Rampin, the levels, emotions of Atzilus. Al yedei amshochas oir ein soif baruchu b'moichin aklulim behei chasadim behei gevurus. How do you rectify this? How do you rectify all the 248 parts? Is by drawing down into them from the Oir Ein Sof, from the endless light of Moichin, which is included in the 5 chasadim, 5 kindness, and 5 severities. Now, what does that mean? Like we said before in the example of the giving, in the action, the action contains within it emotions, the person's feelings, the person's understanding, the person's desire. The same thing is the mitzvahs. In every mitzvah, it contains with it all the different levels of Hashem, and it comes all the way from the source of Moichin, the source of the brain, in the spiritual brain. The source of the divine intellect is the lavnunis of Keser, the crown. And who which is the supreme delight and desire to draw the light below into the 248 organs of Zoh. And the light drawn forth is divided into 613 individual streams, based according to the respective levels of the mitzvahs. Every mitzvah draws down a different light. For example, when you give tzedakah, gemilas chasadim, when you do kindness, nimshach oir ein soif baruch hu lechitzonius akeli nechesed hazah. When you do an act of tzedakah down in this world, it draws down a light, the endless light of Hashem, to the external aspect of the vessel of the attribute of chesed, kindness of Zah. So when you're doing the acts right here in this world, it triggers the light in the corresponding levels in the spiritual worlds. Ubekiyum adinim, and when one observes, through observing the mitzvahs that are considered the order of severity, when there's different mitzvahs that reflect different things. You have the mitzvahs that is the severity. What do you draw down? The godly severity into the aspect of the severity of the spiritual world in Zah. Berachamim. Same thing is when you do with compassion. Now the path and passage, issuing the light, is through the internal aspect of the vessels and their intellects. What does that mean? So he explains. The path is the love, the fear, and the love, and there are two types of fear and love. One is sichlim. Sichlim means intellectual ones. Or tivim means natural ones. There's some love that is generated by the intellect, by understanding godliness, and you reach the level of love. The other love that is generated by nature, and that is called shemchinas moichin the katnus vegadlus. This corresponds to the level of, in terms, to the major or minor divine intellect. There's the major and minor intellect. There is a major intellect. Major intellect is called moichin the gadlus. That is when it's love that comes from an intellectual love, and there is the minor intellect is when it's an emotional love. Velazeh, now he explains a very interesting thing. So Velazeh bikesh Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom me'oid lekayem hamitzvos ma'asos atluyos ba'aretz. He explains, based on this, we understand why Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, insisted, he begged Hashem again and again that he wants to come into the land of Israel. Hashem said, no. Yes, please. I beg you, no. 515 times Moses prayed. Why did he want so much to go in? Because he wanted to fulfill the mitzvahs that we do only in the land of Israel, as contingent to the land. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu want so much to fulfill those mitzvahs? At the end of the day, if a person is not obligated to do a mitzvah, if you're not in Israel, you're not obligated, so you're exempt. So what was the point that Moshe Rabbeinu so much wanted to do the mitzvah? So he says, because Moshe Rabbeinu knew that every mitzvah draws a tremendous light from Hashem. And when Moshe Rabbeinu would do those mitzvahs, he is able to draw so much deeper and essential light from Hashem through these mitzvahs into the physical world. And that is the ultimate purpose of the creation, the ultimate purpose of ishtalshelus, the chain-like descent. So he says, Shehein tachlis ha'ishtalshelus. For these, the practical mitzvahs are the ultimate purpose of the ishtalshelus, the chain-like descent, the progressive descent of the light of Hashem into this world. That's the purpose. Why? Lehamshich oirin soif baruchu. He wanted to draw down the endless light of Hashem, levarer hakelim dezo debri yitzir asiyah, to purify and to refine the vessels of all the three worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, Debahein, Hein, Arapach, Netzoitzim, which in them is located the 288 sparks that we mentioned yesterday. There's the godly sparks that fell into this world. And our job is to elevate and to refine those godly sparks. How is it done? Exclusively through Torah study and mitzvahs, commandments that requires action. Shebebriya Yetzira Asiya Dafka. And those are things that we don't do in the higher spiritual worlds. It is specifically in these lower worlds, Beriya Yetzira Asiya. And when we elevate those sparks, this is when Mashiach comes. By purifying and elevating all of these sparks, that every mitzvah that we do, that's why when we have a chance to do a mitzvah, we don't push it away. Because every mitzvah that we do, and then this is also the concept of the prayer. This is the davening. When you daven, when you pray, and especially when you daven, that's what Alter Rebbe explained, what the Arizal says. Why today, back in the days, we're going to learn more about it tomorrow, but back in the days, the prayer wasn't such a long prayer like today. They used to put on tefillin, say Shema, and go back to learning. Then we had the Hamidah, but there was not so much davening. Why today, says the Arizal, the davening is so long? is because this is the main thing of refining. When you use your emotions, your feeling, when you focus on the words of the davening, and when you use the emotions, whatever you do in this world triggers a similar reaction from above, brings down light into this physical world, and it refines this physical world. And this is what brings Mashiach. And the world will be perfect, the world will be refined, that every aspect of ourselves, our emotional aspect, because like we said before, to bring the vessels back to make it complete, is that every aspect of the vessel, every little tiny little bit, shred of this glass that is shattered, needs to be corrected and become a new vessel to receive this eternal light. Thank you for joining. This is the end of today's Tanya. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue tomorrow. Please share, have more Yidden participate in the learning of Hasidus, which as the Baal Shem Tov says, will bring Mashiach. Any questions?